Lidia Bastianich has made her mark on the cooking world with her public television series Lydia's Family Table. Her series features the Italian chef preparing classic Italian recipes, surrounded by her family with everybody pitching in and working together. Also, the owner of 4 restaurants and the author of numerous books, Bastianich has become one of America's best-loved Italian chefs. David Price sat down with Bastianich to discuss her lifelong love of the kitchen.
Lydia, thank you very much for coming to Central Pennsylvania. You're visiting us. I'd like for you to help us visit where you are from originally. It was part of Italy. It is now part of Croatia. An ethnic upbringing. How did it influence your cooking today?
Very much. David, I was born in Istria. Istria is a little peninsula, and if you're looking at Italy, the boot of Italy, in the right-hand corner, all the way up, there's this little peninsula. And now it belongs to Croatia. It borders with Slovenia, and Italy is right to the left of that. Again, across from Venice, a boat ride, maybe an hour, you're in Istria. But that part of the world, even though specifically Istria was under the Romans, the Visigoths, the Austro-Hungarians, certainly the Venetian Empire ruled for quite a long time there. It is right where sort of East Europe and West Europe sort of meet. And I guess at meeting points, there's a lot of diversity. Languages, all these different influences of people that came and went and occupied, and that is all reflected. It's reflected in the culture, is reflected in the architecture, is reflected in the languages that we speak. You know, you're born at least bilingual there, and of course it reflects in the food. And
it makes a very interesting palette, shall I say, for the palate. Colors to choose from to make your creations.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I represent sort of the Italian cuisine because basically at home, even though we spoke Croatian, or at the time was Yugoslavian, with my mother I speak Italian. So I represent the Italian cuisine mostly, but I cook with sauerkraut. I can make goulash, palatschinke, strudel, which is all Middle European. So it is the different occupations, people bring with them their customs, their flavors. And then it remains with the people of the place, and it trickles down through centuries.
Now, you are prolific. As I was reading about you, you've got 4 restaurants, I believe, several books. This is now your 3rd show on PBS, or a new one is on the way?
Yes, the new one is on the way, and so there's 3. The Lydia's Family Table is the latest and 3rd set of shows, and the new one is Lydia's Italy, and it'll be the 5th book and the 4th cluster of shows, as we call them.
When you were a little girl, did you say, I want to spend my life cooking, or was there something that made you, that this was clicked and you said, yeah, this is it?
No, you know, as a little girl, you don't plan. I remember, and I recall, you know, really always being engaged in food, but it's not something that you say, this is what I'll do. At the time, that was the natural thing to do, to help your grandmother, your mother, and you know, I think food plays such a big role because it was not just unpacking, wrapping, microwave, and eat. It was making the food from the source, from the ground up. I mean, I remember my grandmother planting potatoes. I would help her, you know, and if you take a potato, when it makes its sprouts, I had to cut the potato so that each cut had one of those sprouts, and that went into the ground, and that became a whole new potato plant. So I mean, unless you experience that, you know, you need to go to college get your degree in agriculture to learn that. But I had it firsthand when I was 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. But so with all the food, you know, they had the courtyard animals, the chickens, the geese, the ducks, the cows. Not many cows, but we made our own wine, and that was the whole family was involved. Wheat, we went, grew the wheat, harvested, and then went to the mill when she needed it. You know, freshly milled kernels. She used to go with 2, 3 bags, barter, leave some of the wheat there for the pay, and the rest we would come home, make pasta and bread.
I have a saying, and my wife has heard it many times, is sometimes I just eat, other times I want to dine. And it sounds like the inspiration, the roots to your cooking sort of is a hybrid of I just need to eat to sustain myself and yet to dine for the experience.
Well, food it's it's a whole spectrum of things because dining is sort of pleasures or artsy. Maybe one might consider that dining is not a necessity for survival. Food, on the other hand, is a necessity for survival. So we need that to survive. So at which point does food transcend into fine dining and becomes arts and whatever? So that, I guess, in today's world, we look for those pleasures. But at that level, it was, in a sense, survival and nourishment. But from my recollection, I dined awfully well.
Let us just say that there is somebody who's watching right now who has never actually seen Lydia's family table, and they're thinking, well, she seems like a nice sort, I will tune in. What would they be running into when they tune in?
Well, that series is in the Italian fashion, in the remembrance of all of this that I said in family and all that, we are a very close-knit family. And as the viewers follow you, they want to know more about you. And I used to get a lot of email, you know, because the show that they're watching is taped in my home. And in my home, my mother, who's 86 now, she's also part of our home. She has her little apartment. And my daughter with my 2 grandchildren lives a block away. My son has 3 grandchildren. So they were coming in and out. They wanted to know more about it. So I dedicated a whole series in the book how to cook for and with the family, and I included my family, which is what we do. So the viewer will see me either cooking with my mother or with my son or with my daughter, with my grandkids, for them, teaching them in my home. So they will see a very warm relationship, but I think most of all what the feedback that I get is that I am quite direct about the food, and they understand it. My technique and my recipes are very simple, straightforward, flavorful. They reflect the culture very much, the Italian culture, but at the same time they're simple because Italian cuisine is simple.
It is simple, but it's complex because it's easy to go, well, it's just red sauce and pasta and garlic, but it's almost geographic where you go in Italy as to what it looks like, what it tastes like. What's your main influence, would you say?
Well, this is the beauty of it, and you might call it complexity. I call it diversity and beauty because it depends on how much you've mastered the subject, how comfortable you feel with it. The peninsula has 20 regions, and the whole peninsula, the Italian peninsula, it's no bigger than California. So you can see that it's and yet you go to each one of these regions, and there's such diversity in culture, in the food. The topography is so diversified. Italy is this long peninsula, so there's sea all over. There's a chain of mountains, the Alps going across the north. There's the Apennines going down the backbone. So you have this diversity of climates because from the sea you go to the sort of the altopiano, which we call, the plains, so pastures and all of that. Then you go to the mountains. So there's such tremendous climatic diversity, and the products in each region are so diverse, they're so intense. And the cuisine really reflects the terroir and the flavors of that. So with 20 regions, there's a lot of different things to cook.
Tons of things to choose from. I want to ask you one more thing before we go. My standard closing question for chefs. If there was one thing that you would want every cook to understand to make them a better cook, what would it be?
Simplicity. I think that cooks feel, from professional chefs to home, feel that they have to load up that recipe with all kinds of spices and all of that. That's not so. The criteria number 1, get the best ingredients and elaborate them as little as possible. Exalt their goodness, their qualities.
Lydia, thank you so much for joining us here in Central Pennsylvania. We'll look for you on the family table.
Thank you, David.
A copy of the program you've just seen can be purchased through Penn State Media Sales at mediasales.psu.edu or by calling 800-770-2111.